I think we'll go ahead and get started. Can everybody hear me? First off, I'd like to welcome you guys here and thank you for coming. It's an important day for Coach Bruto and his family. Celebration of retirement for his coaching abilities here at school, at the Adrian School. This is going to be hard for me because when I started out 12 years ago teaching here, I was taught with George for 6 years. We shared a office for 6 years, and let me tell you, we had some fun. I could sit up here and tell you story after story, as just like everybody else that's outlined to speak today. And I do have a good one, and I will tell it here in just a few minutes. But right now I want to go over some of Coach Bruto's records here at Adrian. And it's on the program, but I think it deserves to be read out aloud here. He's coached football from 1978 to 2013. As a head coach, he was hired in 1986. 28 years of service as a head coach. His win-loss record was 238-77. Full-time on staff from the time he was hired first, 1978 to 2013, 36 years. His total record there was 297 and 95. He has a state championship in 2002. He has a runner-up in 1987. 10 semifinals as a coach here at Adrian, 8 as a head coach appearances, 19 district championships, 17 head coach, 17 of those were as a head coach, 14 conference championships, and 13 of those are as a head coach as for football. Junior high football records, 124. 26 years of service there. Girls basketball from 1979 to 1984, and then again from 1989 to 1995. His record there was 159 and 87. Junior high girls, he coached them for 6 years as well, 36 and 20. Boys basketball, 1997 to 1999, he was 33 and 13. He coached junior high track, girls track, boys track, high school track. He's done it all here at Adrian. His overall sports records here are 430 wins, 177 losses as a varsity head coach in 45 sporting seasons. 1 state championship, 8 semifinalist appearances, 21 district championships, 16 conference championships, 1 WEMO conference tournament championship. 147 and 50 junior high head coaching records in 49 sports seasons, and 9 junior high conference championships. That is one humongous accomplishment, George, and I mean, I can't say it. He's done a tremendous job here at school. He is the definition of Blackhawk pride, in my opinion. He motivated students, kids, better than anybody I've ever seen. One of the quotes, looking at that up there, and if it's not running, you'll see it here in a little bit. I believe Mike Burris said he'd still run through a brick wall for you. So, and he got that out of every student. Did a great job. Again, 12 years ago, I was hired here, and they said, well, you get to share an office with George down in the PE department. So that lasted for 6 years, and he moved his office, and I really missed sharing an office with him because we had a good time. I learned a lot from him as a new teacher coming in. I'm pretty sure he thought I was kind of crazy and wild, and I thought, well, he's old and outdated and crazy too, but you know, it worked out well. We got along good. We really did. And like I said, I could sit up here and tell story after story about him. The one I really do remember, and I don't remember if it was my first or second year here. Coach Bruto, back when the football field was out on the where the new building is right now, would go out and paint the field a couple days before game day, and then he'd come in and he'd take a shower to get cleaned up before he'd go teach class. I just saw him drop his head. So I've got my class out there. He gets done. He comes in. My class is still outside. I don't know anything happens. And apparently, he falls in the shower and knocks himself out while he's taking a shower. So I know nothing about this. I come in. Nobody's in the locker room. He's already gone. I get a phone call from Rita, and she goes, "Mr. Lyle, you're going to have to watch Mr. Bruto's classes the rest of the day. He had a little accident." I said, "Well, Rita, what happened?" She goes, "Well, he fell in the shower and knocked himself out, and he's got a concussion now." For 2 days before a football game, you know. So several of us got to looking through the equipment room. We found an old white football helmet in there, and we took it to Rita, and Rita dressed it up a little bit, and it said we made a shower hat for George, and Rita put on there, "George's shower cap." We had some good times, George. Like I said, I know you're going to enjoy retirement. You're going to enjoy your grandkids. You deserve it. You've put in your time here. Like I said, I wish you the best, your family the best. I know you're still going to be still around. Every time you come in the high school office, I got a job for you. I ask you if you'll do something for me, and you always say yes. So I can tell when you get bored at home, you always come in. You're looking for work. So next up for today's outline of speaking is Mr. Dave Knuth with the school board. He is up going to present Mr. Brudo, and I think he's got a few words of wisdom he'd like to say too as well.
On behalf of the Adrian School Board, I'd like to thank everybody for coming in today to honor George on this special day. But first, I'd like to say a few things about the people that set up today, the maintenance staff for getting everything set up for today, and also Alex Apple for producing this DVD and taking care of the sound system. Mrs. Carr and her classes providing the refreshment and the cakes. And then Kendra Toll brought in a couple of cakes for George that they're really nice. And also the administration, especially Don Lyle and Abe Lewis, for making all the arrangements and setting up the speakers for today. And also Mike and Michelle Burris for the newspaper article, the flyers, and also the scrapbooks. And the scrapbooks are going to be set up out in the commons, and Michelle's going to have them spread out. So for all the players, find your year group. You can sign your name and a little something if you want to. And for everybody else, there's going to be some blank pages for you to sign and say anything that you may want to. Now, George and Patty, it's been unbelievable that you've been here for 37 years, 36 as a coach. You've been the face of Adrian Athletics for a long time. That doesn't happen anymore. I did a little bit of research at different levels, and I couldn't find anything that comes close to that. Your loyalty and commitment to the kids, your teams, and the school are second to none. You led by example at all times, and that spread to the kids. You know, whenever we talked, you'd say, "I hope the kids learned something." And I know that wasn't about the sport that you were teaching. It was about making them better people. And like the T-shirt and all the slogans say, you taught them pride in themselves, their team, the school, and their community. You also taught them about commitment, determination, and dedication to their goals. Your influence helped make them better student athletes and also future citizens of Adrian. Your passion for the game is only surpassed by your compassion for the kids. And I got to say, it is going to be nice to talk to you on the sidelines of football games this fall. Probably even buy you something from the Adrian Athletic Club. But I got to remind you, it does cost $2 to get in now. And Patty, got to say, it's been a pleasure to have you around and your support for the school and the community. And I know George wouldn't have stayed coaching this long without your help. So with that, we got a few gifts to give you. And I'd also like to say on behalf of all the school boards since 1978, we appreciate what you've done for the kids and the community. We're presenting George with a plaque that he can put on the wall, and it reads, "Thank you, Coach Bruto, for 37 years of dedication to the Adrian Blackhawks." And since that's going to be hanging on be a nice place for opening Christmas presents, I think. I think Randy Pike is next. Hey, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. I want to tell you that I think highly of Coach Bruto, and I have known him for a long, long time as we grew up in the same town. You remember that when we used to go out to the playground at the elementary school, and the little kids would get there soon. We'd get there early so we'd get a spot to play. And the big kids, I'm talking big kids, would come in there and run us off. George happened to be one of the big kids that would run us off. So we didn't get a chance to play all the time, but as soon as they left, we got to go in and do our games. But this is truly a privilege for me and an honor to be able to hand this out. This is a resolution from the Missouri House of Representatives in George's name, so for all of his achievements. And I think the main achievement that he had naturally is with the athletics, but the second achievement is with the kids and the education that he's produced for these kids. And I just can't thank him enough for what he's done for this area and everybody that's been through this school system. And this is also signed by Tim Jones, which is the Speaker of the House, and myself. So congratulations, George Bruto.
Hi, everybody. I'm Debbie Powell, and I graduated from Adrian High School in 1982. I am a proud Blackhawk. I played for George. Woo! I played basketball for George Bruto from 1979 to 1982. Myself and my fellow teammates were not what you'd call thrilled to have George start coaching our ball teams. You know all the statistics about who he coached and when he coached, but what you probably don't know is we didn't want him. We'd had a good run under Coach Morrow. We were undefeated in junior high. We were undefeated JV tournament and freshman tournament as freshmen, and we weren't looking for a new coach. We thought we were going to be great, just how things were. But as history tells you, we ended up with George as our head coach. And if I live to be 1,000, I'll never forget the first day that he came out to introduce himself and coach us. He lined us all up against that back wall, and he paced back and forth and said, there were things like introductions and talking about his coaching style and all that sort of thing. Well, we were already feeling a little abandoned and disappointed by our last coach, so we still weren't sure about Coach Bruto. And then he said something that will haunt him for the rest of his life. He said to a group of strong-willed teenage girls, "This may be my first gig as a girls basketball coach, but I've been around the block once or twice. I have, after all, been to Vietnam. I am a married man. You cannot shock, surprise, embarrass, or scare me." Right away, we knew he had no idea what he was doing. No idea. So we spent the next year or so showing him that that's just not true. You can be all those things, and teenage girls can be responsible for causing you to be all those things. We had a rough year well, I don't know. I want to take that back. We didn't have a rough year. We had an interesting year. We only won 2 ball games that season when I was a sophomore, the very first one and the very last one. But we didn't lack any kind of strong-willed trying in the in-between times. We only lost a few games by more than 10 points, and most of them were real close and a whole lot of overtime. So it was a good year for us to get to know each other. And somewhere along the line, we all decided that we liked each other. And over the course of the next 3 years, we decided we liked each other a lot. And we liked George Bruto a lot, and we liked Patty a lot, because we tried to spend all of our breaks, all of our weekends, every day off from school harassing somebody to come open the gym so we could play ball. One time George was snowed in and he couldn't get out of his driveway, and we called him up and harassed him and asked him to come in and open the gym so we could play. He said, "I can't get out of my driveway." A couple of girls on the team said, "No problem, we're coming and getting you." There was no escaping us, none. But somewhere along the line, we became a real close family. And I think that one of my great quotes is, "Behind every great man stands a great woman rolling her eyes." I've seen Patty Bruto roll her eyes a few times. But I got to tell you, he couldn't have done it without her, because we made a point of showing up on his doorstep with pizza late at night, and she always welcomed us in. She always was a part of everything we did together, and we have come together and stuck like glue. I graduated in 1982, and any time 3 or more of us come together that played for George, his name comes up, I guarantee you, and we talk about him, or we talk about something that happened while we were playing ball. And I can't say that about many of my other teachers or coaches, although, to tell you the truth, he was only one of 2, because unfortunately for us, he became the girls' track coach as well the same year. So we got a whole lot of Bruto for a whole lot of years. So we could have done worse. But we want you to know something, George. If you were 15 years old or older and playing ball for you, we still love you. We loved you then and we love you now. And that was a true testament, because we spent last night at George and Patty's house, 12 of us. Would have been 13 if I remembered to invite my sister, right, Carrie Scott? And we were there until late, and we had him up way past his bedtime. But I tell you what, we laughed so hard, and we had such a good time, I could barely speak this morning. I thought I won't be able to talk this afternoon because I can't find my voice. But I don't know what to say other than thank you so much. We hope you had the time of your life, because you better believe we had ours.
Excuse my voice, I apologize. I'm Shara Oldfield Jensen, class of 1995. I started with Coach Bruto in 7th grade. He abandoned me my 8th grade year, so got to start over back in my freshman year. My freshman year would have been the year 91-92. We had some firsts since the class of 82. We were the first team to win a conference championship We won the district and regional championship that year as well. And thanks to Tina, she made the last second shot that got to carry us on. And that was quite an excitement. My sophomore year, we continued on. We were 19-5. We were second in the WeMo Conference. We had tough losses to Rich Hill 3 times that year. That's the year we also went to 2A, and we got beat by Butler by 1 point on a last second shot, which that was very, very hard for all of us. Junior year, that we went undefeated till we went to play at Drexel. I'll keep this story clean. It was halftime. We were only down by a few points, but we went into the locker room. And of course, at that time, they kept this locker room about 100 degrees just for the visiting team. So we were all dying, and Tina thought we needed all to have a drink of water. And she asked, "Hey, Coach Bruto, can we have a drink of water?" Yikes. He said, "You don't need any gosh darn water." About that time, we wore the whole water cooler. But it was fun. We lived through it. We had many ups and downs my last year, but it was a good time. We still ended second in the conference tournament. We had consolation of the Archie tournament. We again lost to Butler. My senior year, what I remember the most is at Hume, him saving me from an irate parent. The parent charged me after the game, and all I remember, Brudo grabbing me by my uniform and saying, "Get to the locker room now." So I lived through that. Through the 4 years, our total record was 68-30, and it was many, many good times. We had many life lessons learned from Coach Bruto on and off the floor. Not to mention, he played a major role helping me continue my career through college. There were many times I wanted to call him and ask him, "What do I do? Things aren't going right. I don't like the way things are going for me." But I knew I wouldn't get the sugar-coated answers that I wanted. He would look at me and say, "What are you going to do about it?" To this day, I can still hear those words through many challenges. I'd like to thank him for everything he's taught me, for always being there, and most of all, the memories. Thank you.
I got my speech here with me. I've known what I've wanted to say for a while, but I know I'm going to be too nervous and forget half of it. So if it looks like I'm reading it, it's probably because I am. But I moved to Adrian in 1983 from Butler. I was a senior his first year as head coach. It's an honor for me to be allowed to speak on behalf of his first team as head coach, and on behalf of the seniors that were his first team as head coach. Like I said, I moved to Adrian in 1983. I had just a few years of experience playing football, and I had no experience with the tradition of Blackhawk football. Randy Morrow was my head coach through my junior year, and when he left, George Brudo became my head coach, but he was my JV coach for my freshman, sophomore, and junior year. So I had 4 years of Brudo getting inside my face mask with me and setting me straight on what my job was supposed to be when I didn't do it right. I look out at all the younger kids that have played for Brudo, and having covered the teams for the Adrian Journal, I know who the performers are and who Brudo thought could be better than what they were showing on the field. And how do I know that? It's because they are the ones who are probably getting their butts chewed the most. And fellas, trust me when I say this. I mean, you haven't seen anything. Well, you think you have, but you haven't. When Brudo was younger, he was pretty fiery. I think the record for face mask grabbed at one time is 6. But he's mellowed over the years a little bit. I still see him getting on it, and I always get a smile on my face because, 45 years old, I still remember it, though. It seemed to me that there was always one guy that was his whipping boy at halftime. In my senior year, that was me. It always the example, that he would make out of somebody, I guess. But I remember one halftime game, he just came in at halftime. He's like, Burris, where's Burris? And everything. And I was like 3 feet in front of him, I was like, oh, I was hoping he didn't see me, but he did. And he goes, Mosier, did that feel good? And Mosier's like, no. He's, well, think number 80 right there, But if I didn't know any better, I would have thought that he would have thought that I was the worst ball player ever. But he didn't. He saw me as a player that was not playing to the full extent of my abilities. Sure, he chewed on me, but he always did it in a firm but fair manner. And after the game, when all's said and done, Brudo would be the first one to tell me, good job. He's always been a passionate coach. He wears his heart on his sleeve. There's never been a gray area with him. You knew you did well. If you did well, you knew it. If you did poorly, you knew it. But with the criticism came the way to correct it and make it better. And in the end, when you did it right, he'd tell you, good job. Well, I've been a fan of Brudo since the day I graduated, and my experience with him came via the football field. And his days as basketball coach were both before my time at Adrian and after I had graduated. I know there are many out there that see George as a great influence on their lives. And I say this as a 45-year-old man, but I venture to say there are many more like me that much younger and would agree when I would say I'd still run through a brick wall for him if he told me to do it. Now, if you tell me to do it today, I guess I have to live up to it. But my dream was that my son Drew would one day play for Brudo. This is why I have the speech. It's going to get hard for me here. But I was 34 when Drew was born in 2003. George had been bugging me since '93 when I got married to when I was going to get him a tackle. Burris, I need a tackle. When are you going to give me a tackle? I was like, well, Coach, I played tight end. He goes, yeah, but if you could have blocked, you'd have been a tackle. Well, needless to say, I waited too long to get him a tackle. But I've seen Adrian football grow to be an institution. It's a way of life. When people think of Adrian Blackhawk football, they think of George Bruto. Bruto will always be the spirit, the heart, and the passion of Blackhawk football. It will not fade when he hangs it up officially in May. It will continue to grow under the leadership of Matt Cochran. The seeds of success for the future were planted in 1986 when George took over the program. It grew with the first state championship game played in just his second year as head coach. It flourished throughout the 90s when the teams were conference champs 6 times and district champs 7. It reached its glorious peak with a state championship in 2002. And there's not a person who've ever played for Brudo in any sport that didn't have a lump in their throat and their tear in their eye when he reached that plateau. And it will live on during recess in the playground. When boys play 3-on-3 football, it will live on in Little League fields where kids aspire to be like the high school players that they look up to. And it will all mature in conference championships and hopefully long playoff runs. My son may have never played for Brudo, but he will benefit from the program that Brudo has instilled in every boy and man in Adrian. And for that I say, thank you, George. Good job.
Well, first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name's Ryan Ferguson. I played for Coach Bruto from 91 to 94. Our team was really a start for a string of semifinal teams, and we seem to keep playing Valley over and over again. But I definitely appreciate the opportunity to be here. It really is an honor. There's a couple things that I really think about with George, and there's so many things I could talk about, but there's a couple big things for me. And I think first and foremost is just the tradition and pride that he really built in this program. When I was young, I can remember watching guys walking down the hallway with this jersey on and just being in awe and thinking about, I want to be a Blackhawk one day, and I really want to do that. And it was our opportunity as we became, football players, and we walked up and down the hall, and we were the ones wearing that jersey, and we were the ones that had the honor of being able to do that. I mean, you felt like a god walking through these hallways when you've got kindergartners, you're walking through trying to get to class, and they're looking up to you, and they look forward to that game on those Fridays. And it was a great tradition that we had throughout that process, and I really appreciate him putting that into place. A lot of things he did for the program. He really instilled a lot of consistency and some standards that we all had to live up to. Preparations for games. I'm sure we all remember Coach Bruto calling us late at night on a Thursday night to make sure that we're not out partying or anything like that. So that was always interesting. Or make sure you eat your pasta on Thursday night, so you got to build up your carbs. That was another thing that I always remembered. And things like, simple things like whenever we prepared for games and, we would be out in front of the field and we would start to stretch. Most people, when they count for stretches, it's 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Well, for us, it was black 1, hawk 2, black 3, hawk 4. I still do that today whenever I go to the gym and work out. So it definitely sticks with you whenever you see that over and over again. And I appreciate the traditions that he's built and working through that process and working that. One of the other things that we look at is that he really instilled a sense of confidence in his team, but it was a humble confidence. We weren't big talkers. We weren't there to boast or brag. He taught us how to play right. So he taught us to be confident and believe in what we can do, but you don't have to go tell the world about it. Just go out on the field and show them how it's done. And that's something that I've always remembered and admired, that he was able to instill that in his players and that ability to be able to be more than what they really thought that they could be. I look at some of the teams that we played on. We weren't very big. We didn't have a lot of size. We had my senior year, we had a tackle that was 160 pounds, dripping wet. And somehow we won games, and we would just win games over and over again. And that was thanks to Coach Bruto. He really motivated us and helped us understand that we could be more than the sum of our parts. And we believe that. And each game, we would get better and better, and we continue to build. And we really built a foundation and teams that would continue to do well over the years. And I appreciate his ability to motivate the team to be better than what we really thought that we could be. And he helped a lot of people to be able to do that. And that motivation came from his ability to laugh with you, to get in your helmet, grab your face mask, and get into you when you needed it. But he also knew when to take a step back and really console you. He knew when you needed to flip the switch. He knew when you needed that encouragement. And I was always thankful for that opportunity when he would do that. Not get in your face, but really help you out from there. So I really appreciated that. And I know a lot of guys that made them better because of that. The biggest thing that I remember from Coach, and I still use it on a day-to-day basis, is it's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. And I look at those teams that we had, and that really motivated us. He helped us be better than what we really could. And I'll never forget that. I'll be a Blackhawk forever because of it. And that pride is there because of what he instilled in our teams and helped us to do more than we could really do. George, I thank you for that opportunity, and I'll always be a Blackhawk. Thank you.
I'm Abe Lewis. I'm the current athletic director at Adrian High School. I'm obviously not Kevin Hill, but Kevin couldn't be here today as he had a previously planned family vacation since Butler is on spring break. Kevin is currently the head boys basketball coach at Butler. And talking to Kevin, playing golf with Kevin, getting to know him real well, one of his idols that he looks up to is Coach Bruto. And Kevin speaks volumes of the things that he's done. And one of the reasons Kevin got into coaching was because of George Bruto. So I have a short statement Kevin sent me that I will read. In his brief time as the boys basketball coach, we experienced some success, and a reporter from the Kansas City Star came down to watch practice and interview Coach Bruto. I'm sure she wasn't aware of the wordsmith that Coach Bruto was. When asked what his basketball philosophy was, Coach replied, "What I know about basketball wouldn't make a very thick book." As usual, Coach Bruto was selling himself short. I can speak from experience that if there was ever to be a book written on his knowledge of impacting young lives, building leaders, building successful relationships, and fostering community pride, that pages needed would rival that of any great novel. Leadership has been described as a process of social influence in which one person can enlist the aid and support of others in the accomplishment of a common task. Adrian R3 is losing a great leader, a great educator, and a great man. Anyone who thinks that things will ever be the same has been getting a hold of some bad ice. Good luck to you and your family on the next phase of your life. Enjoy the time, enjoy your family, and enjoy the praise. You have most definitely earned it. There's nothing better once you've had the best.
Well, I didn't write anything down because I knew Ryan, Mike, Kevin would say something that pretty much every kid that's walked through these halls has felt, and it is. He instills leaders. He's building leaders in characteristics that are preparing us for life. And I was fortunate enough to get to know the Brudo family pretty much since I was born. Going to daycare with Chad and Sean. Adrian football was definitely something that I knew was important to the Brudo family. Just ask, Coach, just look at your sons. It's important to you guys. I grew up, same thing, Ryan, you were saying, you're walking through the halls, and Ryan, I was watching you whenever I was a little kid. And it's an honor. It's something that you want so bad in your life. But I didn't really know what it was about until it kind of hit junior high, and you show up and Coach, it's 6 a.m. I knew who you were kind of as a person. You're a nice guy. I knew you were a great coach. But gosh, you can yell at some kids at 6 o'clock in the morning. So then I was thinking, maybe football isn't that fun. Maybe Chad and Sean were just pulling my leg. I don't know. And then you go and you get to high school, and it gets even more intense. And you think, I'm just a freshman. I'll just kind of hide at practice. He won't be able to find me. Oh, Milligan, you missed a tackle. Well, Coach, that guy's 200 pounds, and I'm about 110. How am I supposed to bring him down? And it doesn't matter. That was his expectations. I didn't really know what that was about, like what he was trying to do. It all kind of started to come full circle senior year, and this is something that we all have gone through if you've played football for Coach. You go through, you what we call is pay your dues, and it's finally your time. But he did a great job at keeping you level-headed. You were never too big. You were never the greatest thing ever. You were just like every class that had come before, because you cared so much about the guys you played with, and you wanted to step on that field and get a victory for them, but more importantly for you, Coach. That's who we played for a lot. Our senior year, I was fortunate enough to be on the team that earned Coach his first state championship. It was quite an honor to be on that team, and I kind of want to step through a few events for that week. I remember that Thursday, or the Friday actually, because we played on a Saturday, we do the day before a game, the seniors go around and talk and give kind of a motivational speech. And we're sitting in the Mizzou indoor practice facility, which is the coolest thing for a bunch of high school kids getting to go and sit in a big place like that. And we're going through just pulling all these motivational quotes and all these little bits of information you've given us over the years. If you don't have a tear in your eye and a lump in your throat, you're not ready to play. I didn't know what that meant as a kid. I didn't know what it meant as a freshman. It finally, it became something that I knew what it meant. You're the Notre Dame of 1A football. Everybody wants a piece of you. That one, that held true, and that's one that you come to, every Friday night you come to play. Everybody wants to beat you because you're Adrian. Coach, you helped put us to, and sustain to where we were at. Playing in that game, it was, it's hard to remember. It was only 11, 12 years ago, but there's so much excitement and there's so much emotions going on that it's hard to put into words what we were thinking. But I do remember with about 5 minutes to go in the game, we had a 2-touchdown lead, and Coach, I looked up at you and you had a little smirk on your face because you knew what was about to happen, but you weren't going to say it. So I said it. I go, we're finally going to win this thing, aren't we? And you said, you just get out there and keep playing hard. We got 5 minutes to go. That's how you were, and the job wasn't done, and it's something for life that we keep with us. And still to this day, one of the proudest moments of my life was we're standing on that field, and they announced Adrian as the Class 1A 2002 state champions, and Chris and myself, you were telling us to go get the trophy, and we said no, we're not going to be the first to touch that. We had to drag you, and you were the first one to touch that trophy, and you lifted it up, and I still love that picture. It's something that I'll always treasure, and I'm honored to be part of that moment. But it wasn't all just tears and crying. You should have seen Coach when we walked into a press conference after the game. First of all, 3 guys from Adrian go into a press conference that's going to be on Channel 9 News. That's just a bad recipe. We don't know how to handle the media. We're a bunch of just farm boys down here that, yeah, it's just bad. And Coach, all you did was just giggle the whole time. You were so excited. Steve, I know you were there and some other media members, but it was definitely a sight to see, and I was glad to be there and be part of it. Coach, on behalf of that team and any other football player that's played for you, thank you. You didn't coach us just the game of football. You were preparing us for life, and I thank you.
Hi, I'm Tyler Toll. I graduated in 2009 and had the privilege of playing for Coach from 2005 to 2008. Coach always loved to quote Vince Lombardi, and it was very fitting for him to get his point of view from such a successful person. And it showed in his conduct and the way he carried himself. One of the quotes he loved to use was, "Winning isn't a some of the time thing; it's an all the time thing. Greatness is all the time. You don't do it just some of the time." And that really stuck with me, and it's been something that I've held near and dear to my heart every day. And that's also another one of his quotes along the same line, is "Never be content," and that has just stuck with me and allowed me to be a better person and get better each and every day. Another quote from Vince that Coach used to always love to reiterate on is the habit. Like I said, the habit of winning, and it takes a man willing to work his heart out for a good cause, and that's why we're here today, to honor a man willing to work his heart out for a good cause. After a friend of mine suffered a loss to the Blackhawks my senior season, he sent me a message over the internet and basically asking me the same thing that many of you are probably asked from time to time, is what makes Adrian Adrian? And you know, although we would probably all have different answers, they'd all be something along the same line, and that's tradition and what essentially makes us different. And the leader behind that is one of the core things that drives it. But that leader, being Coach Bruto, established things in his coaching that applied to life, and it's a core set of values. From hard work to respect, but above all, discipline. In this fast-paced world, these core values get thrown out sometimes, and people don't realize how important they are. And he applied those not only to the game of football, but to teaching and overall being a father figure to so many. This simple but effective way of teaching and showing each and every one of his students and athletes and community members sticks with me just like it does many of you. That simple and deep is always better than shallow and complex. He instilled this love for the game and community that means so much and makes Adrian the great place that it is. So tradition of what? It's his hard work, respect, and above all, discipline that he instilled in us. Thank you so much, Coach.
Hey Georgie, Randy Marl here from sunny Arizona. Just wanting to wish you the very best on your big day today. I wanted to be the first to congratulate you, but since I'm last on the program, I guess I'll be the last to congratulate you on your stellar season. 37 years. Wow. And just to think it all started back in, well, 1975, I believe is when it was. I hate it that I can't be there in person today, but I hope you understand because you and I are a lot alike in when it comes to things like this. We get very emotional, and when we talk about people that we care about, our players, our coaches, our family, we get that lump in our throat. We get choked up. Tears start running down our face, and I would be very surprised if George has not had the handkerchief out at least twice to 3 times already. But anyway, trust me, it is so much easier for me to talk to my iPad here in my living room rather than being in a gym full of people, your fans, and looking at you and trying to tell you how much I care about you without getting choked up. So trust me when I say I would rather be there, but it's easier for me doing it this way. I was sent some questions to ask, to be asked about George, and one of them was, what did I see in George that made me want to hire him back after 2 years? So, see, George did his student teaching back in 1975, and what people probably don't know is that George drove 75 miles from Missouri State College at that time, Missouri Southern State College, I better be careful how I say that, at Joplin. He was driving back and forth each day to help coach high school football. So that would be the main reason. Plus, his rapport with kids was just over the top. I mean, George could get along with anybody. And of course, we're not even talk about his coaching because he was, he brought a lot to the table there. So that would be the main, 3 reasons why I wanted George to be back with us as soon as that happened. And we all know that George went to Lockwood for 2 years, and we didn't have an opening. That was the key. That was kind of what we were hoping when George came up to student teach, that he'd be able to do his. A job would open up. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and George took a head coaching job at Lockwood. And 2 years later, things developed. We were able to hire not only George, but had a job for Patty, and we called him, and he accepted, and the Brudo Morrow era started, and I'm eternally grateful for that. So thank you for that. A couple of other questions that was asked. They said, can you think of any funny stories about George? And one just comes to my mind immediately, and that has nothing to do with football. It has to do with a basketball. And if George is not smiling right now, he will be if I say Archie. I don't know if it was an Archie tournament or just a regular season game, but I know it was an Archie game. George and I was refereeing a ball game. We're going up and down the court, and you know how you kind of check your partner out, see if we're both in, position, and if I need to move or whatever. And I look at George, and he's fiddling with his pants, and we go up and down the court, and every time I look over there, he's down there by his zipper is what he. I said, whoa, we've got a real problem here. But George took care of that. He blows the whistle, stops the game, and he goes, timeout, timeout. I've had a blowout. Well, you can imagine the crowd. The Archie coach throws him a towel. He goes in the dressing room. They find him a pair of coaching warm-ups. Now, I'm out there with the team. They'd both gone to their huddles. George comes back out of the dressing room. He gets a standing ovation from the crowd, and I'm thinking, holy cow. Only George Bruto could get a standing ovation in a heated basketball game. So that's the funniest story I can tell on George. Another one, it's funny now. It wasn't funny at the time. It was a game at Sherwood, football game at Sherwood. It was either a junior high game, because George coached junior high also, or a JV game, because I was not coaching the game. I had stayed with the varsity and came over later with Superintendent Mr. Crabtree, and it was raining, and we were sitting in his vehicle. Well, the game was progressing, and we all know how George can work the referees, and there better be some snickering right now, because we all know how the hat might turn sideways or whatever, and George is ripping them. Well, this official had had enough this night and ejected George. So guess what? I have to get out of the car, and I know I don't have my coaching clothes on, so and finish the game with probably my principal clothes on. I don't know, but I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I really think it was. Couple of other things I was commented on. When I heard that George was retiring, what did I think? Well, first of all, I wasn't surprised at all, because anytime you get over 30-some years of doing whatever, but especially coaching, it'll take it out of you. I'm speaking from experience, and George, like 37 years. And we had talked about this at clinics too. I'd asked George, how many more years are you going to stay in, George? He said, well, until it's not fun, and you're doing the right thing when it gets to that point. And I think that's what George has told us, that when you look at yourself and you're thinking, this is what am I doing out here, and this is not near as much fun as it was years ago, and it's time to turn it over to the younger pups, and that's what we both did. So, and George thinks it's time to do that. And I wish all the luck to Coach Cochran. You got some big shoes to fill, but I know you can do it. You've had some great mentoring there. So that's all I need to say about that. Most of you, I wanted to touch on one other thing. When I left Adrian in '86, George and I had been together since 78, I guess, so 8 years there, 9 years counting his years with the year he helped as student teacher. When I left in '86 to go to Warsaw, as a former player and a coach here, alumni, and administrator for Adrian, I know what it was like to put the black and gold on, the pride you felt, the school song, all of the things that go with being a Adrian Blackhawk. So I didn't want to just turn the program over to just anybody. I wanted somebody to take the program where it was and take it to greater heights. And I knew there was only one person that could do that, and that would be George Bruto. And that was my recommendation to Mr. Crabtree, and he took it to the board, and everything else is history, because 2 years after George takes over, he takes him to the state championship in William Jewell against Hardin Central. Unfortunately, the game didn't turn out like we wanted it to, but in 2001 that it did. They brought home their first state championship. So I don't know what else to say. In closing, I Congratulations again, George. I just, although I can't be with you today, I will, and this is a promise, I will be in Springfield when you will be inducted into the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame, whether it be this January or the following January or whenever it might be. I know that you are very deserving of this award, and I want you to enjoy your retirement, enjoy those grandbabies, and enjoy life. Thank you, brother, and I love you. Talk to you later.
Before I actually officially introduce Coach Bruto to come up here and take the microphone, we have one other person who would like to be added to the speakers, and that is Coach Burchett of the Midway Vikings. He has a presentation for Coach Bruto.
Boy, is this going to be fun. How many times does a Midway Viking get to stand up in his purple shirt in front of a bunch of Adrian Blackhawks and talk? And they got to listen. George and I have been competitors forever. He's going on 38 years. I think next year's my 40th, or will be my 40th in this conference. And I've coached against him in track. I've coached against him in basketball and football forever. And we've had, about everything that I have that I can remember involves huge games, probably with the Blackhawks. It's always that way. And we always look forward to it because I always like to play the best. And when we play Adrian, we're playing the best. And I think that's a tribute to George and the system. And a few things that maybe some of you don't know. My, how do I want to word this? Competition for Adrian or against Adrian started out when I was in high school, because my high school coach was a guy that grew up right out here in a 2-story house, played his football right out there in the old field. His name was Lane Phillips, and he made the Adrian Midway rivalry what it is, because every time we lined to play Adrian, it was beat Adrian week. And it became really, really big, and it maintained that forever. And, as the coaches have changed, some of the things stayed the same. He's been here forever. I've been there forever. And it makes for a great traditional rivalry. And I don't think that anybody or any schools in the state of Missouri have any more of a rivalry than what we do. But it's a great rivalry. It's one with respect. It's one that people like to see. And each one respects the other and what they do. And, George and I had this thing going on. I don't know how this ever happened. But I found out that we were married on the same day. August 25th, 1972. Our kids were born on the same years. They're the same age. Your kids, my kids, same age. So that's kind of weird. I don't know what's going on with that. But, I guess things lined up, just to be that way. But I'm going to miss that game. I'm going to miss the hat going sideways when we're getting good. And, one of the things that I always liked, and I give him a little trouble, he took some time off and did some reffing there. If you ever watch George on the sideline, he never had one referee that was always right. But when George was reffing, he was always right. Always. So, George, I knew you needed a little color to this ceremony, so I want you to come up, because Coach Carter and I thought that you needed some color. This black is kind of drab sometime, and gold. So I was enough I could get this black and gold bag, but you need to have a little bit of purple to put on. Seriously, congratulations on a great career. We've run side by side all the way, and We both started out as assistants, and we both moved into the head coaching job, and we've been there forever. And one thing that all these kids come up with, and most of the people talk about, I call them kids. They're 40 years old now, but when I coached against almost all those guys up here talking. The one thing that stands true, and it's what separates. You know, I talk about this every once in a while to other people, but anybody can win with X and O's. You know, you sit down. If you can't beat somebody on a sheet of paper with X and O's, you're never going to beat them anyway. But it has to do with the relationships that are developed among your players and the relationships that go on with people around you. And it's been a great experience for us to get to work against each other and coach against each other, and congratulations.
So I'm not going to talk very long because I know you all want to hear George speak. But I just think it's a little ironic that here we are in Adrian. We just had a Midway Viking come up, and now you're having a Butler Bear stand here and talk, and you're going to have another one here in a second. You know, that's one thing that's great about this community as an outsider. Coach Hanna, no offense, but when we were in high school, I didn't play football, right, wrong, or indifferent. But there were many Friday nights we drove up 10 miles to the north and come watch the Adrian Blackhawks play rather than watch Butler play because we wanted to see what Coach Bruto might do on the sideline. And when I took the job a year and a half ago, I drove my first day to work, and I said, I'm Coach Bruto's boss. And I thought to myself, at the time I was 29 years old, and he's been coaching and teaching longer than I've been alive. But there is one thing, Coach Bruto, right before I introduce him, I'll say, Coach Bruto, you have a lot of wins here at Adrian, but against me, I have one win, and you don't have any. So without further ado, here's George Bruto.
I taught driver's ed at Midway for one summer. And every day I'd come into the classroom, I'd have something purple on my desk. And I just put them all in a box, and then when I left, Mary Woodke at the time, why, she was the one that hired me, and so I took it and gave it back to her, and I said, you can give this back to Coach Carter and Coach Burchett, because I said, it doesn't fit me. So, but we had a good time up there that summer. I was talking with a friend this morning. Went out to the complex and had some things that Coach Lyle would ask me to do, and I went out there to finish up, and I talked to a friend, and he said, well, you got your speech made for today? And I said, no. I said, I haven't started on it. He says, keep it short and simple. So I'm going to try to keep it short and simple. There's a few people that I have to thank, and I'd like to start out with that, and then we'll go from there. But I'd like to thank our Heavenly Father for giving me the opportunity to work with young kids, to coach them, to help them out in their troubles. You know, somebody told me when I started coaching, he says, the old guy says, well, when you start coaching, he says, it's just not a 9-to-5 job. And I go, what are you talking about? I said, all the coaches I've ever seen, I said, they come in at 8 o'clock in the morning and they leave at 5:30, 6 o'clock, whatever. You never see them after that. Well, he was right. I'd get phone calls from kids, and any hours of the night on Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays. You know, it was a 24/7 job, and I loved every minute of it. And he was right, and I'm glad that the Heavenly Father picked me or gave me the opportunity to do that and give me the talent to work with kids. I want to thank my family, my wife and 2 boys, because they kind of got shorted on the deal a little bit. There was a lot of times that, especially the boys, that Dad couldn't be there because he was coaching, or he had to go to a meeting or something like that, and Patty had to pick up the slack, and you know, I I love them for supporting me and being there when I needed them. And I had a comment from a lady at Appleton City one time. She says that's an awesome looking sideline when you stare across the football field and see Coach Bruto and his two sons standing there coaching against you. She says that's just an awesome feeling to see. And there's not very many people that get that opportunity. I know Larry coaches with his son, and it's a great feeling to be able to do that. I'd like to thank the players of Adrian, the fans, the people of Adrian that supported us over the years. You know, hey, we couldn't have done this without you guys. You know, we just couldn't have done it. It's a community deal. You had the kids, I got to coach them, and it was kind of a 50-50 deal, and they did good for us. The city of Adrian has been awful good to my wife and I and our kids and the community. Just overwhelming. I hear of coaches having nightmares about the places that they're working and coaching and knock on wood, we didn't get that. You know, it's a rarity somebody stays in one spot as long as I have, and I guess we just didn't make the right person mad or right people mad or something like that, because we got to stay here and we've enjoyed every minute of it. It is short and sweet. I can't even read my own writing, so I want to thank the school, the administrators. I was sitting at the kitchen table this morning and I was trying to remember. I said, how many superintendents has been here since I've been here? I think there's been six superintendents, you know, and I never received a paycheck. The superintendent never got to the door and handed me a paycheck until after Patty retired. She always got them. Even when she was superintendent, she'd come in the door and she says, "You've been paid," wave the check, and out she goes. So we had, I've worked for 6 different superintendents, 10 different principals, and man, I can't even count how many people on the board, different people on the board, but it's been a bunch of them. And I appreciate their support and confidence in what we do. I'd like to thank my assistant coaches. You know, Randy, he always said, he says, "You're only as good as the people you surround yourself with." And I've had some awful good assistant coaches. I remember first when Bob Neely came in here, and him and I did it by ourselves for, 2 or 3 years. You know, we had, 40-some kids, and we did the coaching. We did it all, the junior high school, and JV, and we had a good time with that, and we did that for several years. And I remember him coming in, and then, you know, I was trying to sit down this morning and to see if I could write them all down, and I think I got them, but I'm not going to read them all off because it'd take too long. But I appreciate them, because you come to Adrian as assistant coach, by damn, you're going to work. I'm telling you. You're not going to get a free paycheck or anything like that. I've heard coaches talk about, "Oh, I got this assistant coach, but I don't let him do anything." Well, why are you keeping him? Why are you paying him? Make him work. That's how they get better. And you know, out of these 16 coaches that I've had, I think every one of them, when they've left here or will leave here or stays around, they're going to be a good coach, be a coach someday somewhere at a bigger school. And I know we've got Wheels, Jim Wheeler, Little Wheels. He's at Carrollton, I think. He's coaching up there. Jim Wheeler, the basketball coach, he helped us on the sideline some. He's at Staley. You know, some of these guys get out here, they get good jobs. And sometimes I go, what am I doing wrong? They're getting the jobs, and they're getting that big money, and I'm, but hey, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Wouldn't trade it for the world. I'd like to thank the secretarial staff that's been here. They've they probably hate to see me come down the hall. I know Lori used to. Finally, Lori says, "Can I come down?" I was AD and had a little office over here, and they just gave me a new computer. And you guys know how great I am with a computer. And I said, Lori, I said, come in here. I said, type these in here and put them in some where all I have to do is hit one button and that comes up and all that. And she did a great job with that. And Rita, you know, they help us out with the forms and the ones up in the main office, and they just did a great job. The staff, the teaching staff, you know, we had kind of a working relationship. If I had a kid that wasn't making his grades or causing trouble in the class, they come and told me about it, and we took care of it. And that's how we worked here. You know, of course, I can't point this way now. I said all the high school classes are about down there, but that's what's important in life is what you get in your classes. On the football field, it's important at the time, and you learn life things that you're going to run into in life and encounter, and how you can handle them and stuff. But I think we always had that working relationship. I hope they respected me, because I sure respected them, because we have and we do have some awful good teachers here at Adrian. And I coached the janitors. They always was real good. Grab them, go out and paint the field out here, and they'd all shake their head, you know, and go hide and stuff. But we always got it done. The cheerleaders over the years, you know, they'd travel with us, and they'd tell us where we could set our benches and stuff like that. They kind of took care of us and ordered us around and things like that. But we had a good time with it. All the people that kept stats, did the chain gang, the tower people, the Blackhawk, voice of the Blackhawks, people like that. You know, we always get a comment about the people that work out there and how good they are and how professional they are and the things like that. And I'm really proud of that, because they've done a good job, and that gives Adrian a good name. I'd like to thank Randy Morrow. Now, I did my student teaching up here, and we coached together for a semester, and then they didn't have any job or anything, and so I went back and finished up down at Missouri Southern, and we thought maybe we'd have something the next spring, and it didn't happen. And I got a job at Lockwood, Missouri. When I went to interview, I thought it was an assistant coach. And I thought, well, I could be happy being an assistant coach there, you know. And they called me back and said I had the job, and so we went over to sign the contract. And they said, congratulations, you're new head football coach at Lockwood. And I go, whoa. I said, I thought this was an assistant job. And they said, no, you're the dog now. So anyway, we went in there. When I went in there, we followed a coach that had a lot of success. And he graduated 19 seniors the year before, and I had one kid coming back that had any varsity experience. And then I had a great assistant coach. Coach Dykins was great. He was great. He came in, and he's a tall guy, and he doesn't get too excited or anything like that. And he says, Coach Bruto, he says, we're in for a long year. And I go, well, I said, I don't think so. And when you come out of college, man, you're full of it. You can whip the world, you know. X's and O's, I can out X and O anybody, and you know. But you got to remember one thing: X's and O's don't win the games. The Jimmys and Joes win the game. And sometimes I didn't get the Jimmys and Joes going the right direction when we was down there. And we struggled for a couple of years down there. And the last year I was there, I was football coach, basketball coach, and track coach. And I come home one night after our basketball season was over with, and I told Patty, I said, hey, this ain't going to cut it. I said, if this is what coaching's all about, I said, I don't want a part of it. In summertime, I run heavy equipment, construction and stuff, and I said, we can do that and have a pretty good life. And it wasn't, I don't know, about a week, 10 days after I'd sent in my resignation, Randy called me, and he says, hey, what are you going to do next year? And I said, I don't know. I said, I'm looking for a job. You got a janitor's job or something up there we can take care of? And I said, I don't care what it is. I need something. He said, no. He said, we're going to have a PE, driver's ed, football coach, and we're going to have a librarian's job for Patty and stuff like that. And I said, well, let me think about it. I said, Patty's not here. We'll talk about it when we get home. And she said, yeah. And so I called him back, and so we moved up here. And I told her this in '78, and I told her, I said, now don't unpack everything, because I said, sometime football coach is going to last about 5-6 years. And I said, we'll have to move. Well, I was moving some boxes the other day, and there was a couple boxes there we hadn't unpacked. So, so I guess we're ready if we have to. Anyway, I want to thank the players that played football, played basketball, ran track, both high school and junior high. I was very fortunate. I came to Adrian at a time where we had some good people, good athletes. And it's like I told a bunch of people one time, I said, I don't do anything. I said, I make sure we get them all on the bus. I make sure they get their pads on straight, their jerseys with the little numbers in front, big numbers on the back, and get them in the field. I said, they do all the rest of it. And it's true. We just had a good bunch of kids. And you were a good bunch of kids. You're still kids to me. The other day I had a little trouble at home, and I called 3 football kids to come and help me. And I said, let me tell you guys, girls too, young ladies, you guys you're my kids until the end of time. So don't be surprised if Coach Bruto don't call and say, help, and so I need your help. So the players, you guys just did a super job for us. You made the old man look good several times. I'd like to thank the coaches that I coached against, Larry and Kurt and Jerry Cornelius. He was down at Rich Hill for a long time. We always had big rivalries with them. When you play good teams, it makes you coach good. It makes your kids play well. And I always tried to tell the kids that, you're the Adrian, the Notre Dame of 1A football in this part of the state. Everybody wants a piece of you. And I said, you got to play your best every time you get on the field. And you got to do the best in life when you're out there. Every day, you can't take a day off. You can't take a week off, something like that, because there's somebody going to take your job. And I always tried to get the kids to realize that. And I hope you did. I heard a coach the other day. He was talking about how many kids he'd got to college and stuff like that. And he asked me. He said, "How many you got to college?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know." I said, "I don't have very many." But I said, we've got lawyers, and we've got bankers, and we've got housewives, and we've got mechanics and farmers and things like that. I said, "How many of them do you have?" And he said, "Well, I don't know." He said, I just never counted. I said, that's what success is. That shows the success of your program when you can sit back and you can look, and you got people working for the big banks, and you got people that's lawyers and people that's studying to be doctors and things like that. And they come from a little school like this. And that's what's important. That's what's important. I want to thank the guys for getting this up. Don come to me one time, or not too long ago, says, "What do you need? What would you like to do?" And I said, "I don't want to do nothing." I said, "You know how I am when I get up in front of people. I start crying and everything." And so he said, "Well, we got to have something," and I appreciate what they've done for us, of what they've done. I started playing football in 1961. We didn't have junior high football at Butler at that time. I started playing football in 1961. And I played football or coached football ever since then, except for 2 years before I went into the service. And somebody asked me today, "How are you going to handle that?" And I said, "I don't know." I said, "Every fall I've had something to do with football." And I told Coach Cochran the other day, I said, "I won't bother you or anything like that, but I said, I'm going to do one thing." I said, "I'm going to get my lawn chair and my cooler, and I'm going to come out and watch you practice." I said, "When you do something that I don't understand or is not right, I'm going to stand there and say, 'What are you doing?'" So if Coach Cochran's here, it's going to happen. I can tell you, it's going to happen. But I've enjoyed my time here. I've enjoyed the town. I hope I can give back. I want to give back what you guys have given me. And you've given me the time of life. You guys that's played, you know, in the paper it says memories. Thanks for the memories. Hey, I got memories that I can forever. I mean, last night from 6:30 until 12 o'clock we talked about memories and stuff. Them girls had a good time last night. But I've got memories that just, remember Eddie Stearns out here, we're doing quarter eagles, and everybody, it's a football drill, and you're turning, you're chopping and everything, and he's not moving his legs. And I said, what is wrong with you? And he said, my legs are jammed, my legs are stuck. And so we had the old tower out there, and we had some WD-40, and so I got a can of WD-40, squirted his knees. It's amazing how that loosened them knees up. And we went to the championship game up at the Edward Jones Stadium up there in St. Louis, and Brian Milligan comes in there and he's mad. I mean, I've never seen Brian quite this upset. He says, you know what them people, he's talking about the Hayti players, he says, you know what they're wearing? I said, no. I said, I haven't seen them. He said, they're wearing state championship shirts. They've already won the game. And I said, well, I don't know what to tell you. He says, you just wait. He said, I'm going to stuff that shirt right in one of their ears, you know. He was upset, and he got the rest of them going too. And that was a great trip. And every time I see them on TV, I had Patty. I said, "Hey, see that helmet? I stood on that, baby. I stood on it." And that's some things that we can always remember, and the memories, great memories. I wish if there's any young coaches in the audience or somebody's going to get, when you have something happen like, you know, like that, but I just write it down, get you a book and write it down. Or a new teacher, or anybody young getting started. At the end of your career, you can go back and you can look through that, and I guarantee you can write a book, and it'll be a bestseller, because you'll have some funny things and you'll have some sad things. You'll be able to laugh and you'll be able to cry. But it'd be worth the time just writing that down, because you can go back at the end of your career and you can look at that and just laugh and have a good time with it. I better get out of here. It's past time. I've had a great career here. I love every one of the kids that's played. I've got two things I want to do. I was watching a show the other day, and I heard this little girl with this saying, and I've used this before. You know, coaches are the biggest thieves in the world. I mean, everything we have, we steal from somebody, and we modify it to fit our deal. And it was a movie. It was called Dreamer. I hope I can do this. It's you players, you guys that played. When you ran, the ground shook, and the clouds parted. Mere mortals stood and watched. We met you at the winner's circle, and we put a blanket of roses on your shoulders because you were champions. Blackhawks, you're champions in my book. You've given me the best memories that anybody could ever have. And remember that. And I'd like for every player that ever played for me to come up here, and we're going to break it down for the last time. And you guys that, you know, win or lose on the football field, the girls didn't get to do this, but the guys did. Win or lose on the football field, we all got together on the down one end, and before we broke out as a Blackhawk pride. And so I'd like for every player that's ever played here to come down here, and we're going to break it down for the last time. Thank you ever so much for everything. Love every one of you.